Hello everyone, and thanks again for tuning in. My name is Ben Dumas and I am one of the art teachers at Clarendon Elementary. This week we're going to be talking a little bit about pointillism, but before we do that, let's take a look at some artwork from last week. Okay, so before I show the example, I want to show the project that it was inspired from. It was from the Mitsumasa Anno project that we did, where we were instructed to slice our house in half or something in half and try to draw it on the inside, right? So this is what I received from Della, and I thought it was so cool because she chose to do it on the inside of a nail polish bottle. So here's Della's example from the Mitsumasa Anno project. It looks like this is maybe her garage or her basement. She's got a bicycle up there on the wall. And I love how you can kind of walk up through the stairs here. This looks like maybe it's a bedroom, right? She's got her bed there. And this is a roof deck. And I thought that was so cool. And how creative she was just to do it on the inside of a nail polish bottle to begin with, right? This is really cool. Thank you so much, Della. And one more thing that I wanted to share before we talk about pointillism is another Mitsumasa Anno book. Now, I needed to share this with you all because I found it in my library and I didn't know that I had it, or else I would have shown it when we did the lesson. But remember we talked about illuminated manuscript last week, right? And the week before that, we talked about treasure maps. And the week before that, we talked about Mitsumasa Anno, right? So this book ties it all together. Now, it was written by Mitsumasa Anno, the Japanese illustrator, right? And here we have illustrated manuscript, right? Look at the M. He chose to do it with like a mirror, a reflected image, creating the M there. And look at this beautiful detailed border, right? This is illuminated manuscript. And then look at this. M for treasure map. And there's his illustration of a treasure map. I thought, how cool is this? That this book kind of ties in all the lessons that I've done, and I didn't even know I had it in my library. So that's really, really cool. So I wanted to share that with you all. Let's talk a little bit about pointillism, and then we'll talk about the lesson. All right? So pointillism was invented by two French painters, and one of them was Georges Seurat, born in 1859, and the other was Paul Signac. All right? So Georges Seurat and Paul Signac invented pointillism together. All right, now I like to think behind each art movement, there is one painting or one piece of art that really represents that movement. And for surrealism, I would say it's the persistence of memory, right? With the dripping clocks by Salvador Dali. For pop art, I would probably say it is Andy Warhol's soup cans. So for pointillism, I would say it is Sunday afternoon on the island of the Grand Jatte. Now, this was painted by Georges Seurat in 1884. Now, it took him 2 years to finish this painting because of all the immense detail in it. And it's actually a pretty large painting in real life. So he had to prepare for this painting. He would go to this exact same spot in real life every day for 6 months. And he would really try to observe the way that the light fell and the shadows fell. And he would look at the people. And he would just observe to get an idea of how he wanted to paint the scene. Okay, so here are some other paintings by Georges Seurat. Now again, no one had ever done pointillism before. It was a brand new thing. So when other artists saw it for the first time, they didn't like it and they were revolted by it, right? But he kept on doing it anyway, and now a lot of people are inspired by what him and Paul Signac invented. So here's another one. Again, look at all these beautiful brushstrokes. Just so much detail. So the idea of pointillism to George Seurat was that he would really pay attention to the colors that he used, and up close, it looked very different, and your eyes had a harder time really processing and focusing on it unless it was from far away. And that's when your eyes could process the colors better. And that's where he thought he was tying in science into painting. Right? And he was. Here's another one he did. The Eiffel Tower. Okay. So I wanted to show these. These are by Paul Signac, remember his friend. Show you the picture of him again. Okay. Now these are ones that were done by Paul Signac. Also from the late 1800s, early 1900s. So very old paintings. Okay. Now he has mostly landscapes. That's what I've chose to show you today. But you can really see, I'm going to move it up close, all those little dots that they chose to use. And if you go back, you can really get an idea of what it looks like from afar. There's the last one we'll look at. Another one by Paul Signac. So beautiful colors. They really kept in mind which colors they were using. All right. So this was made by a bunch of little dots. Okay, and I'm gonna show you an example of stippling in a second. Here's another one I did of some cacti. Now I suggest you all to do a couple of different things. See, I chose to do cacti. I did a person, right? I did a self-portrait. Now these again, just a bunch of little dots. I started with one dot and I just kept going the whole way. And we're gonna talk about how we add shading in 1 minute after I show you my examples. So this was the last example that I did. And I kind of tied in a couple different things. I tied in kind of Dali, right? It looks very surreal. Things are differently proportioned, right? That glass of water is really big compared to that tree. Things are kind of floating, but they're all done by little dots. All right, well, I'm going to show you an example of how I would stipple an apple. All right. So remember, no lines. We're going to use only dots. And you're just going to go around in that shape of an apple. And you're just going to make your dots, your outline first. Okay? So there's the shape of the apple. I'll go ahead and I'll put a stem on there. And a leaf. Okay? Now, I'm going to add some dimension to our apple. Okay? And I'm going to use the technique of stippling, which means I'm not going to do any lines, right? Like we've talked about. We've talked about hatching and cross hatching, where you add shade. This is hatching. Like this. And if you do cross hatching, you would add these lines crisscross, like that, to show shading. Okay? But when you stipple, you don't add any lines. You only add dots. So let's say our light is coming up here, and this side is going to be shaded. Now, to show a really dark area, you're going to put those dots really close together. Okay? And to show that it's lighter up here, you would put them further apart. Just like that. So the darker your area is, the more close the dots are going to be together. Okay, do you all see how that's happening? All right. Now, I'm going to add a little bit more back here. And the reason in my examples why I was able to get a lot of detail, it's because I use different size markers. So I'm going to flip this one over. This is like an ultra fine point, and I'm going to put some of these dots in here to blend it into a lighter, what would be like a lighter color, right? Remember, this is where our highlight would be, somewhere around here. So what I really liked about stippling was that, first of all, it was very relaxing. Kind of got in the zone and had a good time with my examples, as I usually do, but I found it very meditative. Okay? So try to get that out of it when you're doing the project, because we've talked about using art as a way of expressing how you feel. And if you're feeling a little tense, try to do some of this. Okay, so there is an example. I did this one. So there is a not stippled apple. This is a hatched apple, right? Looking over at a stippled apple, like, hey. Okay. So when you're doing the project today, you can do it on whatever you'd like. Remember, keeping the subject matter open-ended. You can choose whatever you would like to stipple. I would suggest doing something that you already know how to draw. And again, if you're having a hard time just doing that and getting the outline, you can do it in pencil first, and then you could stipple around it and then erase the pencil. All right. I'm looking forward to seeing some of the examples. As always, please continue to send those so I can start each episode off by sharing some of those with all of you. Take care, and I'm looking forward to seeing you all next week.